Waited 10 years for best friend. She rejected me. But when I found someone, everything changed. It started over 10 years ago. First day of university. That's when I met Fernanda. You know that feeling when someone walks into a room and suddenly everything else just fades? That was her. Loud, spontaneous, authentic. The kind of person who made the world orbit around her without even trying. Me? I was the quiet one, the observer. But with her, I felt free. I laughed in ways I never did with anyone else. We became inseparable almost instantly. Classes turned into excuses to spend time together. We shared food, secrets, fears, dreams. She called me my Alex. Sometimes, when we were alone, she'd rest her head on my shoulder. And even though she said we were just friends, I felt something more. I felt it every time she smiled, every time she hugged me for no reason, every time she told me about the guy she was dating, and I had to pretend I wasn't dying inside. How could I not fall for someone like that? But I never told her. Not at first. I was terrified of ruining what we had. I thought if I just kept the secret, at least I could keep her close. Because being without her, even as a friend, was unthinkable. She became part of my routine, my days, my thoughts. I was her confidant, her support system, her best friend. And yeah, I was that for years. Everyone in our friend group thought we were a couple. You two are made for each other, they'd say. And I'd just smile, never brave enough to say what I felt. But inside, every word was a knife. Because I didn't know if Fernanda would ever see me the way I saw her. Years passed. Graduations, birthdays, moving to different cities, breakups. I dated other people, sure, but never with my whole heart. Because deep down, I always came back to her. It was always Fernanda. Sometimes I wondered if she'd ever notice. If she'd see how my eyes lit up every time I saw her. If she'd understand why I was always there, even when I had nothing to gain. There were moments that made me believe she felt something too. Like that time she hugged me longer than usual. When she told me her boyfriend broke up with her and cried on my chest. Or when she said, "I wish all men were like you." How could I not get my hopes up? How could I not think that maybe, with time, she'd choose me too? But it never happened. She kept dating others, talking about others, falling in love with others. And I kept waiting in silence. My life revolved around her schedule, her emotions, her decisions. I became an expert at hiding what I felt, at disguising love with jokes, at swallowing "I love you" with smiles. And every day that passed, a part of me wore down a little more. Real talk. Have you ever been stuck in that position? Loving someone who only sees you as a friend? Drop a comment and let me know. Because what happened next, it broke me. Many times I was close to walking away. I told myself I deserved better, that this wasn't healthy. But something always pulled me back. A text from her, a midnight call, a look that made me forget everything. And so time kept moving forward, and I kept waiting for her. 10 years. 10 years being her best friend. 10 years being her everything except her love. And even though I tried to convince myself that was enough, it wasn't. The truth is, I was breaking inside. There was something in me that couldn't keep pretending anymore. I don't know if it was exhaustion from hiding it for so long, or the emptiness that grew every time I saw her with someone else. But one night, without planning it, I knew the moment had come. Either I said it once and for all, or I was going to lose myself completely. It was an autumn afternoon, the kind where the wind blows cold, but the sun still dares to warm things up a bit. Fernanda and I had gone to our favorite cafe, the one where we always ended up talking for hours. We sat by the window like always. She was talking about her week, her stressful boss, a new series she wanted us to watch together. I was listening like always, but inside, I couldn't take it anymore. Every word of hers hit me with sweetness. Every gesture hurt like a reminder. She still didn't know. She still thought I was just that unconditional friend. And me? I was tired of being invisible. "Fernanda," I said suddenly, interrupting her without meaning to. "I need to tell you something." She looked at me with those eyes that had always disarmed me. She adjusted herself in her chair. She noticed my voice was shaking. She knew me too well not to notice I was about to say something important. "What's wrong, Alex? Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. The words weighed heavy, but they were finally going to come out. "I've wanted to tell you this for a long time, and I don't know how to start without sounding dramatic. But you need to know. I can't keep holding it in." She stayed silent. I felt my heart beating in my ears. "I'm in love with you, Fernanda. I've been for years. I don't know when it started. I just know it never stopped. Every day we spend together, every conversation, every hug. I've lived it all with love. With a love I never confessed because I was afraid of losing you." Her face changed, from surprise to discomfort. She looked away for a moment, and she looked back at me with something in her eyes I couldn't decipher. "Alex," she whispered, "are you sure?" "I am. I always have been. I just never had the courage." There was a silence that felt eternal. The people around us kept living their lives, oblivious to the earthquake that had just happened at our table. I couldn't stop looking at her. I was waiting for, I don't know what, maybe a smile, maybe her hand on mine, maybe an "I feel the same way." But what came was something else. "Alex, you're my best friend. You're the most important thing I have. But I've never seen you that way. Never. And I don't want to lie to you or give you false hope. I can't reciprocate your feelings." I felt like the ground was opening beneath my feet. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't know you felt all that." I nodded, trying to hide the shame. came. Sadness, pain. I don't blame you for not feeling the same way. I just needed you to know. She tried to take my hand, but I gently pulled it away. Not out of anger, just because I couldn't keep acting like nothing had happened. Thanks for telling me the truth, I said. I think I need some space. Not because I hate you, just to heal. Fernanda nodded, her eyes slightly moist. She got up, gave me one last hug, the coldest we'd ever shared, and left. I stayed alone at that table, with cold coffee and an open wound in my chest. I had confessed what I'd kept quiet for so long, and lost the only thing that kept me close to her. That day I understood that unspoken love can hurt. But rejected love, it burns from the inside. The days after that confession felt eternal. Like everything around me had changed color. Like the world now had a gray filter. I'd wake up, go to work, eat, but nothing had flavor. I was living on autopilot with a constant stab in my chest reminding me of what I'd lost. It wasn't just the rejection. It was losing Fernanda. There was this uncomfortable silence between us now. One that couldn't be filled with jokes or talks about TV shows. I needed space, and she respected it. But with each day that passed without her message, without her voice, something inside me broke a little more. At first, I clung to the idea that maybe with time she'd change her mind. I told myself that maybe by distancing myself, she'd realize what she felt for me. I fantasized about her texting me at midnight, about regrets, about spontaneous confessions, but they never came. They never came. Social media didn't help either. Every post of hers was a reminder that her life was moving on without me. She was smiling with other people, traveling, going out, while I struggled to get out of bed without feeling like something was missing. One afternoon, after several weeks of silence, I got her message. "Are you okay?" That simple question was like an emotional bomb. I didn't know whether to respond. Part of me wanted to write her a whole paragraph about how I couldn't sleep, about how her absence was killing me, but I only replied, "Yeah, I'm trying to be." She didn't insist. Neither did I. That's when I understood something. As much as it hurt, staying there would only drag me down further. I needed to rebuild myself, because I'd lived so many years revolving around her that I didn't know who I was without Fernanda anymore. I started filling my days with new things. I signed up for a photography course, something I'd always wanted to do. I went for walks alone, listened to different music, rediscovered forgotten books, talked to old friends. I forced myself to go out even when I didn't feel like it. It was a slow, painful process, but necessary. And in the middle of all that, I met Vanessa. It was one of those afternoons when I forced myself to go out, to an urban art workshop. She arrived late with paint on her hands and a smile that didn't ask for permission. She sat next to me without even introducing herself and started talking to me like we already knew each other. Vanessa was the complete opposite of everything I'd known. She didn't try to please anyone, didn't try to fit in. She was spontaneous, direct, and had a way of looking at you that seemed to pierce your soul. The funny thing is, at first I didn't think of her as a romantic possibility. My heart was still too hurt to imagine anything more. But she knew how to enter without forcing anything. We talked about simple things, books, movies, how ugly it was to wake up early. I laughed with her in a different way. It wasn't the nervous laughter I had with Fernanda. With Vanessa, everything was lighter, more real. Weeks passed, and I started noticing something. I wasn't checking if Fernanda had seen my stories anymore. I wasn't waiting for her name in my notifications. Her silence hurt less. Her absence weighed less. And without realizing it, I was healing. It was on one of those walks with Vanessa, while we talked about our favorite songs, that I found myself happy, genuinely happy. And in that moment, I knew something had changed. Not because Fernanda stopped matching, but because I had finally started matching to myself. With Vanessa, everything was different from the start. No games, no doubts, no uncomfortable silences. It was like her presence gave me permission to be myself, without masks, without anxiety. For the first time in many years, I wasn't walking in circles around someone waiting to be seen. Now I was walking beside someone who saw me without me having to ask. I remember clearly the first time I realized I hadn't thought about Fernanda all day. It was a Sunday afternoon. Vanessa and I had spent the morning painting in the park, laughing at how terrible we were. And then we walked aimlessly through downtown streets, taking photos of old doors, leaves on the ground, people passing by unaware they were becoming part of our memory. Later at home, as I was taking off my shoes, I stopped cold. Something hit me like a revelation. I hadn't checked Fernanda's profile, hadn't thought about her laugh or what she might be doing, hadn't felt that stab in my chest that had accompanied me for so long. For the first time, I felt peace. It wasn't forced forgetting. It wasn't me ripping her out of my heart by force. It was simply a gentle, natural release. Like the love I felt for her had evaporated little by little. No drama, no storm. It just left, leaving me space for something new. Vanessa, without knowing it, was teaching me a new way to love. Not the kind that hurts in silence or waits with anxiety, but the kind that builds itself in the everyday, in long looks without words, in comfortable silences, in simply knowing you're with someone who chooses you without conditions. I got used to her quickly, to her scandalous laugh, to her way of talking with her hands, to her brutal honesty. She'd tell me things that sometimes hurt, but she did it with tenderness. She didn't play with my emotions, didn't leave me in suspense. If she thought about me, she told me. If she wanted to see me, she made it known. I didn't have to guess her interest or beg for attention. And it was in that clarity that my heart truly began to heal. We started building a routine without realizing it. Coffees, messages that no longer gave anxiety, but joy. She talked to me about her family, family, her wounds, her fears, and I talked to her about mine. I told her about Fernanda, of course, not with resentment, not like someone dragging the past, but like someone honoring their journey. Vanessa didn't get jealous. She just listened, took my hand, and said, "Thank you for trusting me with that. But you're not there anymore. You're here." And I was there, with her, present. There was one night I'll never forget. We were leaving the movies, walking under a light rain, and she suddenly stopped. She looked at me without saying anything. I stopped too, not knowing what was happening. And then she said, with that natural way of hers, "You make me feel safe, like I finally found a place where I belong." I felt a lump in my throat. No one had ever said anything like that to me. No one had ever looked at me like that. It was in that moment I knew, when I understood that love shouldn't hurt, that it didn't have to be built on waiting, or silent sacrifice, or broken illusions. That real love starts when you stop begging for it and allow it to come to you in peace. Vanessa didn't come to heal me. That wasn't her job, but she did show me I deserved something different, that there existed someone capable of loving me as I was, without me having to convince her to do it. And so, little by little, Fernanda became an important memory. Yes, painful too, but a memory at last, because now I had something real in my hands, something that didn't resemble anything I'd felt before. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to look back. I don't know if the universe has a twisted sense of humor, or if there are just people who don't know how to value what they have until they lose it. But just when my life was starting to find balance, when love was no longer an open wound, but a comforting calm, Fernanda came back. It wasn't dramatic. No tears. Not even an apology. It was a simple message. Almost innocent. Like nothing had happened. "Hi, can I call you?" I read it several times, like my eyes refused to accept it. After months of no contact. After that silence full of meanings. After that distance I myself asked for so I wouldn't sink further. Now she wanted to talk. I didn't know what she was after. Didn't know if I should answer. But I did. The call was short at first, with that uncomfortable tone of two people who were too close and now felt like strangers. She asked me how I was, how work was going, if I still lived in the same place. Small questions disguised as courtesy. But behind her voice, there was something more. I noticed it. That discomfort disguised as nostalgia. That doubt creeping in between every word. Finally, after several detours, she said it. "I've been thinking about you a lot, Alex." I stayed silent. Didn't know what to say. Just listened. "And I don't know. Lately I feel like I miss you. Like I need you. It's not the same without you." It could have been a beautiful moment years ago. A dreamed of phrase. But in that instant I didn't feel joy. I felt a weird mix of sadness, disbelief, and a bit of contained rage. "And why now?" I asked, voice calm but firm. Fernanda took a deep breath. I felt it on the other end of the line. "I don't know. Maybe because seeing you with someone else made me realize what I let go. I saw a photo of you with that girl. Vanessa, right? And it hurt. I didn't think it would affect me, but it did. There it was. What I had once fantasized about was now happening in front of me. Fernanda saying she missed me, that she felt jealous, that she was thinking about me. But I wasn't the same anymore. I wasn't the guy who lived for a crumb of her attention. I wasn't the one who spent his life waiting for her to realize I loved her. That Alex no longer existed. "Fernanda," I said calmly, "for years I waited for you. I was patient, loyal, unconditional. I gave you everything without asking for anything. I just wanted you to see me. And when I finally gathered the courage to tell you what I felt, you rejected me. I accepted it. I walked away. I rebuilt myself. And now that I finally have something real, you show up." She stayed silent. I could imagine her eyes filling with tears like so many times before. But this time I wasn't going to console her. "I don't hate you," I continued, "but I can't go backwards. What I have with Vanessa isn't just something new. It's something healthy. True, it's not about her choosing me and you not. It's about with her, I don't have to beg for love." She tried to say something, but stopped. And for the first time, I felt compassion. Not for her, but for the guy I was. The one who emotionally dragged himself for years waiting for something that never came. "I wish you the best, Fair," I said sincerely. "But I don't need you in my life to feel complete anymore." And I hung up. No screaming, no dramatic scenes, just a silent goodbye, the kind that really closes cycles. I stared at my phone screen for a few seconds, feeling something strange. Not pain, not guilt, freedom. Fernanda had come back, but I wasn't waiting for her anymore. Now, finally, I was the owner of my story. Several weeks passed after that night on the terrace with Vanessa. My life had taken on a different rhythm, a serene one, more complete. I was starting to feel at peace, like everything finally fit. But as tends to happen with unfinished stories, Fernanda appeared again. This time it wasn't a call or a message. She waited for me outside the office, like in the old days, with that face between nervous and determined that I also knew well. "Do you have a minute?" she said as soon as she saw me. I didn't know what to tell her. Part of me wanted to avoid her. Another part felt we maybe needed to close this chapter with words, not just silences. "Sure," I responded without enthusiasm, but without rejection either. We walked in silence for a few minutes until we reached a small park. It was the same one where years ago we'd laughed until nightfall, eating ice cream and talking about dreams. But this time there were no laughs. Just two people with heavy history on their shoulders. "I don't want to make this difficult," she finally said. "I just needed to see you, to hear you." I sat on a bench and she sat beside me. There was something different in her voice. Less arrogance, more real, sadder. "Alex, I know I have no right to tell you this, but I was wrong. I thought you'd always be there waiting. I thought what we had was safe, eternal, like those friendships you take for granted. But I realized recently that I confused habit with love. And when I saw someone else looking at you the way I never knew how to, it hurt." She lowered her gaze. She was holding back. These weren't theatrical tears. It was guilt. a mix of regret and shame. And what do you expect me to do with that, Fernanda? I asked calmly, without resentment. Erase everything I've lived these past months? Leave the woman who taught me what you couldn't give me? No, she responded almost instantly. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know you matter to me, that you mattered, and that if someday you're alone again, maybe. I shook my head, not out of anger, with sadness. You know what's most ironic? I said, I waited for you 10 years. 10. I endured your silences, your boyfriends, your dismissals, and still I always came back to you, because I idealized you. I thought you were the one, but you weren't, Fernanda. You were just the first, and I confused that habit with destiny. She swallowed hard. Her gaze broke a little. With Vanessa, I learned that love shouldn't hurt, that it's not about waiting for the other person to decide to love you, but about walking together from the beginning. You never chose me. You just strung me along. And when I finally took another path, now you want to come back. Why? Because now I see what I lost, she whispered. Because you were good, Alex, and I was an idiot. We stayed silent. A long silence. Then I took a breath, put my hand on her shoulder as a friend, as someone who no longer expects anything. Fernanda, I cared about you a lot, maybe more than I should have, but I don't love you anymore. And even though part of me will always have affection for you, I can't give you what you're looking for. Not now. Not ever. Because I'm finally where I need to be. I got up from the bench. She didn't stop me, just nodded with tears running down her face. And when I walked away, I didn't look back, not out of pride, but because there was nothing left to search for. That was our last conversation. And in that silent goodbye, I understood that sometimes the longest stories aren't the truest ones. Sometimes the most valuable thing isn't what you wait years for, but what arrives and transforms you instantly. After so much time walking uncertain paths, after sleepless nights and tears that seemed endless, I had finally arrived at a place where I could breathe calmly. A place where love wasn't a storm, but a refuge. That place was Vanessa. It wasn't easy getting here. It wasn't a magical leap that erased all the pain. It was a long road, full of stumbles, doubts, and learnings. But every step was worth it because it led me to understand something fundamental. Real love isn't about waiting for someone to love you or begging for affection. It's about choosing yourself and finding someone who chooses you without conditions. With Vanessa, I learned that love can be soft, constant, generous, that you don't have to shout it or feel it every second to know it's real, that it's in the small things where happiness is built, in a knowing look, in a hug that calms, in a smile shared for no reason. I can remember the first time I truly felt at home. It was on an ordinary day while we were walking through the park without hurry or plans. Vanessa took my hand and told me with a smile that seemed to light up everything around us, "This is where I belong." And in that instant, I felt she wasn't just talking about the park or that moment. She was talking about me, about us, about that space we'd finally found together. A space where there was no fear, no waiting, no doubts, just love. Today I look back and see everything that happened. I see those years of waiting without being reciprocated, of loving in silence, of suffering in solitude. But I also see the strength I built, the learning that made me grow, and above all, the hope I never lost. Fernanda was my first love, yes, but Vanessa is my true love. She arrived when I needed her most, not to fill a void, but to walk with me shoulder to shoulder in this adventure called life. And that's what I want those listening to me or seeing me now to know, that real love isn't always the first or the loudest. Sometimes it arrives quietly. Sometimes it takes time to appear. But when it arrives, it transforms everything. So to all those in an infinite wait, to those who love in silence and suffer in solitude, I say this: don't settle. Don't let someone make you wait only to come later saying they miss you. Love yourself first. Take care of yourself. Seek what you deserve. Because love that's worth it is the kind that arrives without asking permission. And me? After 10 years, I learned to wait less and live more. I learned to close doors so others could open. I learned that love isn't a game of patience, but of choice. Today I'm here with Vanessa, in the place where I finally belong. Thanks for making it to the end of this story. If you liked it, if it grabbed you, or if it made you think, subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Your support means everything to keep growing. With your help, we can hit our first 100 subscribers. Every click counts, and you can be part of this epic beginning. Hit that bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming stories. See you in the next one.
Bro spent 10 years simping and finally grew a spine. Respect. Fernanda really thought she could Uno reverse card her way back into his life.
This hit different. The part where he said, "You were just the first, not the one," gave me chills. That's growth right there.
Alright, let me break this down from my perspective. Alex did the right thing. Absolutely. But here's the thing most people miss. He didn't just make one mistake. He made the same mistake for 10 years. Fernanda? She was upfront. She said no. She never gave him false hope. The problem was Alex kept choosing to stay in a situation that was killing him. That's not love. That's self-destruction with extra steps. But you know what? He learned. He walked away. He found Vanessa. And when Fernanda came back with that classic, "I miss you now that you're happy" move, he didn't fall for it. That is character development. Fernanda isn't the villain here. She's just someone who took things for granted, and when reality hit her, it was too late. The lesson? Stop waiting for people to choose you. Choose yourself first, because the right person won't make you wait a decade to figure it out. They'll know from day one.